make 90% of Sun Prairie accessible by bicycle. And so that, while parks are certainly a part of that, I don't really know who takes care of the bike path that comes out from behind, over on, the neighborhood on the other side of Bird Street, for example. But there's some beautiful trails in this, and they're, one of our charters also is for us internally is to try to help with connectivity. So I would suggest that it's not just parks. It's like
I agree with you. I mean, and again, there's a lot of things that go under each of these departments, and certainly parks include really that trail network that I think is important to what you're talking about. Because they interconnect parks, and somebody here said that has to be one of our goals, we really need them to work with city engineering. So there's multiple departments within the city, but we need to have one area of contact. And I think what I'm trying to convey to you is that that person will likely work within the parks department, and they will have far more responsibilities than just planning parks or planning bike trails. It's also about how we deal with trees and all sorts of other things that actually impact parks. But that single point of contact is what I'm trying to convey.
And I guess the last question is, how can this group work better with the city? Is it the kind of, I mean, April's not so far away. Is it wait for that kind of liaison to happen? And, I mean, this is part of the, hopefully this will help a bit. How can we, when we look at, somebody's going to soon be looking at the whole town, within our group, we're getting volunteers and we're gonna ride that map. We're gonna ride that map and see what the shortcomings are. Perfect. How do we help, how do we get that information to the city to try to?
I would put it down on paper. I'd write it up and put together a report from your advocacy group and give it to every elected official. Give it to the mayor, give it to the entire city council, and let them digest it, and then share it with the department heads, and just say, here's what we found, here's the map, here's the problem areas, here's our recommendations. That's basically what they do in government, and keep it short, sweet, to the point, and people will digest that, and you might get something out of that. And then start talking to elected officials again about proposing a resolution that would maybe implement some of it.
Sorry, I was just going to intervene for just a second. So that is the path we went with the mountain bike trail, and that has come back to, I don't want to say bite us, but we've got opposition to it.
Well, you never know what all the entire global story is in any kind of issue. I mean, you deal with that sometimes the best intentions, right? And you get something moving, you think, hey, we've got momentum, let's get this done, and then something comes up. It's like, well, we're going to have to sit down and figure out how to get past that barrier.
I guess what I was getting at is I completely understand how to come about it.
Yeah.
But there needs to be a better way to, once the proposal's out there, to get it out to the general public.
Sure.
Because, I mean, short of put it in the paper and the Star saying, here's the proposal. Because I don't know what the subscription rate is.
A lot of people have a website.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, if that's the path, that's fine.
I would respectfully tell you, I don't know that I don't think the path is ineffective.
Okay.
I think that it has to be a combination of a couple of things. One, have more forums like this, because a report is just I'm not trying to diminish what you've done.
No,
a report is a bunch of words on paper. I have stacks and stacks of reports in my office, and the thing that gets public officials engaged is to get them at these sorts of meetings and say, hey, these are the great things that we want to accomplish. How do we get advocates for this, rather than here's a report, go implement it. And I think one of the things that we would have provided feedback as elected officials on that is, who are going to be the constituencies that and there's going to be a meeting very shortly that's been organized by city staff and others that I think we're all very aware of, that, let's sit down with the constituencies that might have concerns, because if you drop a report out there, it looks like it's all but done. And that gets people in a very defensive posture. So how do you approach that? I think you engage local officials in meetings like this earlier on in the process before you come to a report. And then you have advocates for that report that are even delivering that in part to the council. You know, does it come through parks? Probably. I mean, with respect to some of these things, you know, you're going to take it through city committees and flush out some of those concerns. But there's, you know, yeah, there's a lot of strategery that goes with that process, and engaging local officials in these sorts of forums, I think, will get you much further. You know, again, I started to talk about, you know, how do you engage elected officials in a way that, you know, I very much appreciated. You know, I probably got and responded 50, 60, 70 different emails from people who were very engaged in this issue. Some people, you could see that they cut and pasted, and some people put a lot of thought into those letters, and those are the more constructive comments. You know, it's not about numbers, it's about constructive ideas that can be implemented. And it's about engaging people in a less, or in a more constructive forum, you know, in a less one side or the other sort of forum. And so my message back to people has been, well, let's go back and have some of those community conversations, and let's figure out what the concerns are, because I think that there's a lot of merit in everybody's concerns, and a lot of things can be very easily worked through if we get people off the defensive.
I mean, I think the reason for Al's question was we learned a lot through this. So, but, I mean, we understand both sides, the pros and cons to it, but how can we better, you know, next time, you know, what is the better
So I'd
path?
like to comment on that as well. First of all, I think the answer lies in your name. It's advocacy. And that is the answer. I don't know if that's a verb, but it's certainly an action word. And that speaks to the whole thing. You've got the mayor here this evening. Come April, one of the three of us will be the mayor. And you had 3 city council members out of 8 here this evening. I think that speaks for itself. That's exactly what you need to do. You've got an interest. You treated us respectfully. We didn't come in here and get browbeaten with a fixed agenda. You talked to us. Well, they seem very agreeable. You've worked with the
You want me to shut the door?
I arranged the bugging in this room. That's why I asked Al to have it here.
We're videoing.
So, I think the answer lies right in there, and you're on the right track. You've made a lot of progress with this. If I were the mayor now and I were saying how should the city approach this and what should they do next, I would want to know that the Park and Recreations Department was involved. That's the staff person I would look to say, is this a plan that makes sense for the city and for the use of the parkland? The other thing I'd want to know is, have you interacted with the other users of that park that are concerned about what you want to do? And if you're saying, yes, we've done that, and those people say, well, we can do this, or there are ways we can work around it, I mean, I think that opens up a whole lot of it. And it's the city council that's going to vote on this. It's not the mayor that's going to do it. And you have 3 of the 8 people here. I think you're on the right track. I think you're doing a great job. If you feel frustrated by where you're at, it's just a process. You're just going through the process.
Oh, no, I am. Don't get me wrong. I'm not frustrated. I laugh about it.
I would kind of, it is close, about 8 minutes to 8. What I would like is, if no one else has anything, do you have any questions?
I just wanted to
Oh,
say
sorry.
one thing.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Have you involved small children, middle-aged children, high school-aged children? Because I know in the high school they have, and in the middle schools they have biking programs where that's part of a thing. Have you involved other people other than adults? Have you gotten to those people to advocate for you as well, to bring a lot of different groups together to say, we need this to move through the whole city, because I'm Paul's wife, but, and we're bikers, and we do a lot of biking all over. And it's really important that you get young people involved, middle-aged kids involved, older kids involved, young adults. So wherever you can get people to do these kinds of things, that, you know, they might look at you and say, well, you're a bunch of jocks. I don't know. But I think that you need to get the whole city involved. And if you bring in little kids that want to do biking, they're gonna speak to the people.
Maybe I can answer part of that
Yeah.
for our group. That we started initially with a Facebook group as a way of reaching out to a large percentage of people, and we understand that Facebook is really utilized by a certain demographic, and a lot of the younger folks are going other directions, including my 21-year-old daughter, who tells me that Facebook is what us old people use now. Even text messaging is kind of passe for him now. But we have been working with other groups. We have set up our own website, and we try to send the information out to that as well. But other than just the group of adults that we have here, some of us in the group are involved in the Boy Scout group, and there's others involved in the Girl Scout groups, and we've reached out through those. And we have the Boy Scout, the local council, actually local meaning covering all the way down pretty much to the Illinois border. Their offices are just outside of Sun Prairie, so we've reached out with them, and a lot of those groups are looking forward to this as potential service project time, and there's a lot of badges and other things that they need to reach out as well. And part of our group is invested in the cycling to school programs and other national programs that involve cycling that are really focused on the elementary school age children. And so we have quite a variety of there's a few people in the group that are invested in making sure that other folks in town are involved. And we've reached out to a few businesses as well, including Fleet Feet as an example, a new sporting group store. They're not a cycling specific retailer, but there are people there who do cycle, and they're looking at some of our activities as ways that they can improve their running activities as well. So we're trying to branch out and include as many people as possible, and we're very open to any suggestions that any of you might have for groups or areas where we might be able to reach out and include more.
Another good thing that a lot of people in the group have done is held different events where we actually encourage people to bike to the events, and just building FaceTime.
So I am gonna call this to a halt now. Are there questions, things that any of you gentlemen would like to know of the group? We've got people here who can, if we have answers, we know what they are. There's some things we may not be able to answer yet. But
How many bicyclists do you think there are in the city? Do you have any?
We actually, to the best of our knowledge, with the details that were available to us, we pulled some statistics, and we don't have that information here, but the proposal that we put together for the trails does have some of those demographics. We were able to determine from the National Federation how many licensed cycling athletes there are in the city of Sun Prairie and the surrounding areas. I think Al was able to work with Trek to determine how many Trek employees actually live in Sun Prairie and the surrounding area. We were able to pull some other statistics as well.
there were no statistics available about how many bicycles, as you gentlemen probably know, how many bicycles are sitting in garages where people might ride them once a month or once every 6 months. There's no statistics available, really. There isn't.
And likewise, no way for us to really measure who's currently commuting.
There are ways to do that we hope to look at in the future with counting measures, like physical counting measures. You know, in Madison, where they've invested heavily, there are automatic counters now in some of the bike paths. But you know, that is part of the plan. As we're working on an application for a bicycle-friendly city designation by the Bicycle Federation, and it's one of the things that they would like to know how we're going to do, but we don't know yet.
Somewhere between 8 and 13%. That's you know, both taking my Charlotte's Walk neighborhood, which is one of the newer ones, and you know, might not be representative of the whole city, but you know, just giving it some thought, as well as the application that we are filling out with the Bicycling Friendly Committee. You know, they give different tiers, and I guess I would say, if asked the question, somewhere between 8 and 13%.
Anything else, gentlemen?
No, it's been a pleasure being here.
Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for all of you who attended, including those